everyone, my name is Sam, back again on Sam Gale Talks. This time I am joined by a man who played for Exeter City, won their Player of the Year, but also has played for Portsmouth, MK Dons, and now is currently with Wycombe Wanderers. I'm joined with David Wheeler. David, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no problem.
We'll start at the very beginning. Obviously, as a child, where did your interest sort of come from with football? Was it parents, or was it just you found it, stumbled upon it?
Yeah, I think it was pretty natural. Like, I think my dad played football, and my whole family are very sporty, like very into football. But yeah, I don't think, like, I think from a very young age I just would kick anything that was like sort of lying around, whether it be like plastic bag or a pine cone or whatever. Like, just like, naturally just wanted to like kick stuff, and like any balls or any sports. Like, I was just naturally very interested in.
Of course, and then obviously, did you play any Sunday League before you went into Brighton, or was there just? Did you go straight in?
I was playing for a couple of local sides like Kingston Kestrels and Lewes Bridgeview, both sort of like local. Because I grew up in Lewes, so they're both like local. They started off as like sort of seven-a-side at Kingston, and then like moved into sort of 11-a-side at Bridgeview, and a bit at Kingston, a bit at Bridgeview, and then. Yeah, went to training at Brighton and then got signed by Brighton, and I was sort of there till I was about 16.
And then, like you say, you obviously moved into Brighton. What was your first stages like there? Can you remember them? And also, what was the football education like there?
I think it's like very different because, like, obviously it's just being in an academy. It's like very structured. The training sessions were like a very good standard. Obviously, like, you got the sort of best players in the county, and yeah, there was a lot of very good players there, and it was quite professional at a very young age, so it was like quite serious, and I obviously, that was very new to me, coming from playing like local teams with mates and stuff, and just before games, not really warming up, just like clipping balls in to try and do bicycle kicks and stuff, like as I'm sure most kids did, like back in the day. Like going from that to sort of having a proper warm up, having a proper drills and structured play was very different.
Of course, and then you sort of left Brighton and then went on to Lewes and Staines. What were they like for you, and were they the first professional football steps for you?
No, so like when I left, so I got released from Brighton when I was 16 and went to play for Lewes under 18s. So that was still very much like it was a good standard. There were a lot of lads that were released from Brighton went to play for Lewes, and we had a really good team. And we only played like a year or so in like sort of youth football before making up the majority of the first team in the conference.
Yeah,
because it was like a very, very good Lewes team that won the Conference South. It's called, like, obviously called National League South now. And went up to the conference, and most of the squad left. So like a lot of the under 18 lads like made up the numbers. So that was like really, really good, like for me, for my development to be exposed to that level of football at quite a young age.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously, carry on. Sorry.
I was just going to say, like, I had like a few like good years in terms of like playing years at Lewes, but we struggled. Like, obviously, had a very young and inexperienced side for that the whole time I was there, and we were sort of battling with relegation like every year really that I was there, and like got relegated from the conference, and then we stayed up for a couple of years, and then got relegated from the Conference South. And I sort of stayed one, like for my first year of uni, I stayed at Lewes, and then I went to play for Staines because it was like a side that was quite local to my uni that I went to.
And then obviously, like you say, you moved to Staines. What level was Staines, and what did you feel that was better than your sort of experience at Lewes?
Staines was Conference South, so I basically I got relegated out of the Conference South at Lewes, and so I wanted to at least try and maintain that level. So that was like a major motivation, and I think also like the travelling I was doing to get to Lewes from uni was mad. Like I was travelling probably like on the train, and it was a bit nuts. So like I needed to sort of take that pressure off myself a little bit. But yeah, like it was a great experience because there was that bit of release of pressure of not being my hometown club, and it was just something that I could just go and experience, like with the whole new surroundings and different players and different people. So it was, and I think like especially my second year there, where the last 6 months I was captain, like it definitely helped me develop and with like more responsibility.
Oh, sorry, I completely cut out there.
That's right.
But then your next destination was obviously League Two, more importantly Exeter, playing 171 games there. Do you feel like that was your most formative years as a footballer? And do you feel like they were maybe your best at the time?
I think definitely. Like in terms of development, I think I was always quite athletically good. Like I was always quite a fit, quick, like explosive sort of player. But I think I lacked the more like technical side of the game, and like the tactical understanding. I think, and I think that's like I couldn't have really gone to a better club. I don't think at the level. I think Paul Tisdale and Steve Perryman, especially, like gave me a very good grounding of the technical and tactical side of the game, which I really needed. And I think that's what allowed me to have so many good years at the club. And I think without doubt, I think my last season at the club was my best of my career because it was like 20 goals and we're a kick away from getting promoted that season. So it was a great season.
And like you say, obviously you weren't shy to pop up within a goal or assist, and in 16-17 you were obviously recognised for your achievements that year, being the best player at the club by the fans and obviously the club. How did it feel when you obviously got that accolade?
Yeah, it's obviously like really flattering. Like, I mean, I personally voted for Ollie Watkins and thought that he was and I felt that he was the best player of the season, and like obviously he's showing now like how good of a player he is. And I think that was sort of a marker of how much of a good year it was for me personally, because to be able to even be in the conversation as Ollie was very, very flattering. So built an affinity with the fans at Exeter, and I think it was sort of like that journey was like quite meaningful for both parties. I think. I think it's always nice because I think for fans generally, like after seeing a young player like Ollie come through from their academy, like the next best thing is to get a player out of non-league and see them do well.
Yeah, and then obviously you touched upon one particular game, and that was the League Two playoff final. What was the build-up like that game? Because it's obviously a different one to playing home and away in the National Stadium.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like nothing else really. Like it's almost surreal. Like that it should come down to playing at Wembley. Like obviously, winning must have been must be incredible to win there. But it's almost like it's unassociated to the season because it's so different. But like the build up was just obviously just like a lot of excitement, a lot of nerves and stuff. And but like the whole day, despite the loss, was a pretty amazing experience. And to score was like you know.
Sorry, it keeps cutting out, and I miss little bits of what you've said. Um, but yeah, what were the emotions like when you scored? Are you relieved it's gone in, or are you more so focused on sort of trying to win the game, or is it just all different?
Oh no, it was definitely just elation. Like when I scored, because I think because we conceded quite early in the game, I think there's always going to be like a little bit of concern, like that it's not obviously not going to go our way. And then scoring the equaliser was just sort of like that belief that we can go on and win the game.
Yeah, and then obviously after that, you went on to play in the Championship for QPR. In your initial matches, did you feel the step up in quality? Obviously, 2 leagues above.
I think the intensity was higher for sure,
Yeah.
And obviously there are generally players in the Championship that can just do things like on another level to the lower leagues for sure. But I think my general game and my general sort of level of physicality was enough to cope with it. I felt like it was like my debut at Middlesbrough was a decent debut, and like to score on my debut as well was just it was great. Like because obviously jumping 2 leagues is always like you have a bit in your mind where you're like, oh, am I going to be able to cope with this level? But I think it was very intense, like for sure, like both sort of mentally and physically. But it was like I loved it really.
And then, like you say, you obviously scored away at Middlesbrough. Did you feel like it was a weight off your shoulders when you scored?
Not especially, like because I hadn't been there that long, and I definitely didn't sort of expect to go straight into the team and keep my place, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I hadn't really gone very many games. Like obviously, I'd come off the bench a few times and come close to scoring, but I hadn't gone too many games without scoring, so it didn't sort of feel like a relief as such. It was more like like a positive. I guess similar to the Wembley goal in a sense that it was more like a positive.
Sorry, I didn't get any of what was just said there. I completely stopped you at one word. I'll re-ask the question. Sorry. So
That's okay.
when your first goal obviously went in, playing for QPR against Middlesbrough away, did you feel like the weight was off your shoulders when you scored?
No, I don't feel like that was the case really because I hadn't played too many games, and I'd sort of come off the bench and come close like a few times, and I certainly didn't expect to go, to QPR and play regularly like from the outset. So like I definitely didn't feel that pressure other than the pressure I put on myself.
Yeah. And then in that season, unfortunately, you sustained the ankle injury. How did that affect you? And obviously, as essentially you hadn't really had the education of being a footballer in terms of like getting an injury. What was that like for you?
I certainly had injuries before, but not to the point where I needed an operation. So and like, especially seeing as like, there was no specific tackle or anything like obvious that had led to it. It just, I started just feeling my ankle was sore, and I went to get a scan, and I was out for the season. So it was quite hard to take, really, because obviously it doesn't really make too much sense in your head when that happens. So yeah, like, it's very, very difficult, like, because I think in order to gain like a respect and stuff with your teammates and stuff, you need to play regularly, and you need to be part of the team and do well. And because that I hadn't had a chance to do that, and like I hadn't had too long to sort of get to know the team, it was difficult, because then I was obviously spending the majority of my time in the physio room, or at home, sort of rehabbing it. So yeah, it was very difficult, very isolating, and obviously really gutting, it being my first season, and sort of having a lot of ambition, and was very hopeful of how it was going to go.
And then, like, obviously you had that season, but you moved on after that, and then after scoring so much at Fratton Park in the past, that became your next move, obviously on loan to Portsmouth. Could you summarise your time there, and what was your opinion when walking out at a big sort of atmosphere like Fratton Park?
Yeah, like, I sort of jumped at the chance to go, because like it was such an incredible atmosphere, like, and going out and playing in front of like Pompey fans, it's just like, yeah, it's very, very few football stadiums are like that. It's just, yeah, it's such an amazing atmosphere. And yeah, I was just, because like you said, I'd had positive experiences playing against them previously. Like, I was sort of very keen to play for Pompey and do well for the club. And I thought, it had a good chance of getting promoted as well. So that was like another thing that I wanted to be part of. But yeah, unfortunately, like, when I went there, two wingers were absolutely on fire. Like, they both were playing incredibly well. Ronan Curtis and Jamal Lowe both scoring regularly and assisting and playing 90 minutes and playing well. So yeah, it was just an unfortunate like circumstance that I was sort of very limited to appearances.
And then obviously, like you say, Ronan Curtis and Jamal Lowe were firing at the time. But then you moved halfway through to go and play for MK Dons, where you got to have your sort of shining moment in that season, when you scored the deciding goal to take MK Dons up. I believe, was it from League 2 or was it League 1?
Yeah, from League 2, yeah.
Yeah, and then what did that do for yourself, obviously, at the time? It must have been huge to obviously go from that sort of period and then get the positive rewards at the end.
Yeah, no, it was exactly what I needed, really. Like, because I'd had like nearly probably 18 months of not really playing very much.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I joined up with my old manager Paul Tisdale, who I was with at Exeter.
Really good manager.
And yeah, to get like regular football was like my main priority, really. And so that's why I ended up sort of dropping down to League 2 again. And yeah, it couldn't have gone any better, really. I got regular football with a good group of lads, and like obviously scored the goal for us to get promoted. Like, you couldn't really ask for anything better than that, really.
I watched that back probably a week ago now. It was against Mansfield. Can you explain that day? Because it looked wild when obviously the full-time whistle went and the euphoria must have been amazing.
Yeah, well, I mean, like the club was under a lot of pressure to go up. I think because
Absolutely,
it was like one of the heavy favourites, and they'd been up like near the top for the majority of the season, and then like I think roughly around the time that I signed on loan, like they dropped down a few places, and a couple of games in when I was there, we dropped out of the playoffs as well.
Yeah.
So like it was really sort of it was quite a tough situation to start off in. But like obviously the journey to get to where we were, and we got to the point where we had it in our hands, and all we needed to do was win that last game. Like you don't need any more motivation than that. That everyone's just like so pumped for the game, and especially being at home. And I think there was something like 20,000 people there as well. Like so, it was like the atmosphere was class. And you just sort of go out when you go out of the dressing room and you feel that atmosphere. It just gives you a massive lift as well. And obviously, I think I scored in like the first 2 or 3 minutes from corner, and it just for some reason I just knew we were going to win. Like sometimes, like very few times in a game in the course of a season, like do you feel so confident that you're going to win? And it's probably only happened to me once this season.
We obviously touched upon the promotion season. What was it like that last day versus Mansfield? The scenes looked absolutely crazy. Obviously, fans jumping onto the pitch, and you scored in the first few minutes from a corner.
Yeah, it was incredible. Like going like the whole build up, really, like sort of knowing that it was sort of a winner takes all game. And yeah, it was essentially like a playoff final at home. So it's a great scenario, really, and for us it was we had a very clear objective because we had to win, whereas Mansfield only had to draw. So the motivation was already there, and then sort of coming out onto the pitch, and there was like 20,000 fans there. Like was just the atmosphere was just gives you such a huge lift, and then scoring in the first couple of minutes from a corner was just like mad, because obviously that sort of the crowd just lifted and then just carried us all the way through to the end, really.
And obviously when the final whistle went, all the fans sort of ran on the pitch. Do you sort of remember it, or was it just a case of getting off?
No, I was on the bench. I think I'd come off in the last 10 or 15 minutes or something. But yeah, I was just like, nah, sod it. Like I'm just gonna run on and get involved, because it's I'd had one with Exeter when we won the playoff semi-final against Carlisle, and that was like funny, because when the final whistle went, I'd sort of dropped to my knees and closed my eyes, which was obviously the worst thing to do.
Everyone runs on.
I just felt that and just got knocked everywhere, and I was just got lifted off my feet, and I just for some reason didn't cross my mind that was going to happen. But yeah, that time I was just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to get involved and try and find some of the other lads and just enjoy it. So yeah, like that, and then the whole day, night, and following few days were just class. Like just such a nice feeling, just to sort of sit in the change room with a medal around your neck and know you've done the job, sort of thing.
Yeah. And then obviously now to the current season with Wycombe, obviously that's been cut short due to the current situation. But how's it been for yourself so far in isolation? And we've obviously spoken about it on social media, but how do you feel the season should be concluded?
It's difficult, really. Like, obviously, as a player, and I'm sure like most people would obviously just want to complete the season when we can on the pitch. But I think the problem is that there's two problems with that. I think one, for our level, is that the clubs can't financially deal with it being dragged on for too much longer. And I think the other more obvious point is that I think UEFA have set a deadline of they need to know sort of which teams are being playing in Europe, in European competitions. So that sort of filters down, has like a knock-on effect to all the other leagues below it. And so you need to finish the season in some way, and if you can't do it safely and on the pitch, and I think it's difficult. It doesn't looking like there's a safe way of doing it, and I think it's not ethical to sort of force people to endanger their families and themselves if they don't feel comfortable in doing that. And obviously, we've got a lot of key workers and stuff endangering their lives to save people, and to sort of make sure the economy's ticking over. But I think if it's not absolutely necessary, then you shouldn't really do it. So I think it sort of inevitably gets to the stage where I think you have to probably artificially finish it in some way, and then it's like, okay, so how do you do that? Do you do a points per game, weighted points per game? There's been so many different theories.
Yeah, of course.
And obviously, some of the theories would benefit Wycombe, some of them wouldn't. And so the problem with most of the other leagues are relatively straightforward, I think. But the problem with our league is it's so tight and it's so close, and it has been for a while. That obviously, naturally, people are going to feel hard done by if they don't go up in this way. But I think it's just going to have to be. That's just going to have to be what happens, and whatever happens after in terms of disputes and stuff. That just has to run its course. But yeah, I think I feel quite philosophical about it. I think that at the end of the day, we're footballers. We're very privileged to be paid to play football, and whether that's in League One or the Championship is we all want to play as high as we can, but if it's League One, so be it. We're still in a very fortunate position, and we'll have another good go at it next season. But I think us and a few other clubs, if they did go up, would have earned that right to go up if it ends up being decided artificially.
Yeah, of course, and like I've seen different leagues. I've seen the Premier League, from top to bottom. Obviously, Liverpool are at the top, so there's not too much leeway in who may win the league. But it's just in the relegation zone. I think it's Watford are just above by 0.20 points or whatever. It's really tight. So obviously, like you say, teams are going to feel hard done by. But moving back into the start of the season at Wycombe, your squad was completely written off by all news outlets and different things like that, and you've obviously defied the critics as a squad in massive style. How do you? What is the catalyst to how your season has obviously gone?
Hard to say, really. I think the manager did very well bringing in certain characters and players in the off season. I think that the group of lads there were definitely underrated, because obviously the majority of the squad is the squad that was there already, and I think we just had a very good culture, and we were very conscious and cognizant of the abilities that we had and the abilities that we didn't have, and we were sort of very strong about playing to our strengths. And yeah, I think we approached classic sort of cliche. We approached each game as it came, and we didn't really have any pressure as such, like that we weren't like a Sunderland or a Portsmouth or Ipswich that needed to at least be in the promotion contention, if not win the league. We would our target was to stay up, and so each game for us was about trying to get as many points as we could as quickly as possible to try and avoid getting relegated. And obviously, like by November, we were 7, 8, 9 points clear or something.
Crazy stuff. And then obviously, I spoke to Jack Grimmer in one of my Sam Gale Talks, and he said about a particular conversation that the manager had with the players about the elephant in the tree, and hopefully it not sort of moving from where it is. Can you sort of remember that conversation? And how was it for you?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was sort of saying, because like the analogy is just like, Wycombe are like top of the league. Yeah. Like, how the hell did they get there? Like, how was that an elephant in the tree? How the hell did it get there? Like, and yeah, it's sort of quite a funny, like quite a good analogy. But the gaffer comes out with these things like every so often that are like really like amusing and actually like often very sort of motivating before games. Like it was very true. Like we didn't really expect to be there. No one else did. Like even when we were top and comfortable, we still weren't being spoken about as a team that could possibly get promoted. And despite being, I think we're in 8th or something as the league stands at the moment, we've got a game or two in hand on most of the teams above us. And if you went on points per game, we'd finish 3rd.
Wow.
And if you look at the teams, if you look at the sort of the comparison of fixtures, like for the run-in that we would have had, like we were quite confident that we would at least get a playoff place, if not challenge for the second spot. It's just one of those things, isn't it? Like we were quite happy, like every week, like we were getting written off. Every week we were proving people wrong. And I think around the Christmas period, the size of our squad sort of told a little bit, and like the calibre of opposition we were playing. We had a mad run of games where I think we played Portsmouth away, Sunderland away, Coventry at home, Oxford, within a sort of 6-week period. On top of having a small squad in a winter period, and I think that really knocked us for 6 a little bit, and we were sort of on the gradual incline after that period, after sort of we'd had quite a bad run of form, and then obviously we went into lockdown.
Yeah, and then obviously, what has it been like playing under Gareth Ainsworth? Because like we spoke about in the analogy, and how you've been doing in this season, how do you feel he's done to help you out as players?
I think he's very good at taking the pressure off us. Like I think he sort of he always puts things in perspective and is quite philosophical about things. Yeah. He puts like a strong value on integrity and hard work and humility and things like that. And I think it sort of creates quite a nice environment in the club where all the players respect each other, all the players value each other, and want to work for each other. And I think that's not an easy thing to create in an environment, in a sport and in an industry where it's quite individualistic.
Yes. Yeah, and then obviously over your career, you've had so far anyway. You've played in some big stages, obviously in playoff finals, and unfortunately not this season, but hopefully in the future. Thinking back to when you first started as a player, do you feel like you have exceeded where you wanted to be sort of so far, or do you feel like you you still have a lot more to prove?
It's a difficult question, really, because obviously, like as a kid, you want to play in the Premier League. You want to play for England. Like that's the dream. And obviously, like the older you get, the more realistic you get with, your ambitions and stuff. And so, I very much went into league football thinking I was fully out of my depth and that I was going to get found out anytime, very quickly. And coming through that and getting to the second league in the country, at like an incredible club like QPR, like just that's I'm very grateful and very contented with that achievement for sure. Yeah. But I think the nature of being competitive and being a sportsman is that like you always want to do better, and I think I've definitely got more to give in the coming years, and more to achieve. So it's sort of yes and no answer, I guess. Like obviously, the dream to play in the Premier League is never going to die. I don't think. Like it's just one of those things. You just wanted to do it. You just would love to do it. And it's very unlikely for me now that it's going to happen. However, I'm quite contented with my sort of contribution so far.
Yeah, and obviously you say about your contribution. What do you feel your best attributes are as a player that sort of led to you playing at the level you have?
I think probably like generally my work ethic on the pitch, my willingness to run for other people as well as myself, my sort of ability to make life difficult for players that team players that I play against, in terms of running in behind, like challenging in the air, not letting anyone have too much space. I think are probably my best attributes. But I think my most standout attribute is my aerial ability, like winning headers for my size. Is definitely up there. It gives like a good platform for the team and the goalkeeper to get us up the pitch. So yeah, I think yeah, like that. Those are probably the main things.
And then off the pitch, I wanted to ask you about your sports science degree. What did that obviously entail, and is it something you wanted to do once your career obviously ends?
Yeah, so I managed to finish my sports science undergrad degree just before I went to Exeter on trial, and that was with a view to being a PE teacher initially. So I would have gone on to do my PGCE had I not have got a pro contract, and then obviously hadn't been able to go back to that. But that was quite varied. There was like lots of different things like physiology, psychology, training applications, biomechanics, like coaching, pedagogy, loads of different stuff. And the thing that I gravitated to the most was psychology. And so like this, like I started my sports psychology masters this year. And it's like a 2-year course. So I've basically done this year, and I need to do my year next year, my dissertation next year, and then I'll have finished that. And that's sort of my other career path that I'm interested in pursuing after football.
Of course. And then my last couple of questions: have you got any personal memorabilia that you've kept over some of your career milestones? Obviously, medals from different things.
Yeah. Obviously, like trophies from from player of the season at Exeter, to like random goals of the weekend or whatever. I think I scored one on TV against Stevenage years ago, and got one of those like Sky Bet trophies, which was quite cool. I got my England schoolboys cap, which is quite cool. And obviously the promotion medal for when I was with MK, and then I got a really nice touch from Pompey. Like I got sent a medal when they won the Checker Trade Trophy, which was a really, really nice touch. Like because I'd obviously played in like the earlier rounds and scored the goal in the quarter final to beat Peterborough to go to the semi final, and that's when after that game I left to go to MK. But yeah, it was like very, very sound gesture from them to do that.
Yeah, of course. And then obviously my last question: who are your closest sort of friends in football?
I've made I'm lucky enough to have made quite a few friends in football. I've probably Ryan Harley, who I used to travel down with at Exeter for a few years. Still in touch with him quite a lot. There's plenty, to be honest. Like it's quite nice, really, because coming from a university background, I was obviously very, very different to a lot of the lads, and it was still it was a nice experience for me to for that not to really be a massive factor, and still make good friends in the game. That was positive, really positive.
And it's also good to see that some of the people that you have sort of played with are still sort of in the same sort of situation you are in now in terms of a football sense. They're all sort of doing well at other clubs, and it's good to see obviously people you've played with do well.
Yeah. I mean, my mate Jimmy Keane, who I played with Exeter with, who now plays for Rochdale. Like he'd gone and played back in Ireland for a few years, and come back and played against him when he was playing for Rochdale, and he's doing really well. One of my good mates in football. Most of my friends I've made in football are still playing and doing well. But it's also nice to see there's a good friend of mine, Tom McCready, who I played with briefly at Exeter, who's gone on to be a financial advisor and have a really good, he does a really good job as a financial advisor now. So, and he still plays part time, but he's really taken to it, and I think that's really nice to see as well.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you very much, David, for coming on. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. If you want to see more of what David has to say on different things, please go and follow him on social media on Twitter. And also, if you haven't seen any of the other videos, please go and watch them. And we will see you in the next video.